Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Southampton Planning Board for the December 4 meeting. And all members are present except for James Labrie, who's been excused. And the first item tonight on our agenda is the release of bond for Quigley Road on Pellegrini Estates. And here for that is Heather Pellegrini. So if you'd come to the podium, Heather.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, as I have in the past, I'm in a butter of the project, so I'll abstain from any discussions and any motions on this project.
Thank you. Let the record show that. Keith recuses himself. Go ahead, Heather.
Just your request that the final bond be released?
Right, it's been, yep, it has been, and a board member had gone up there a couple weeks ago. We couldn't meet the last time because of a lack of a quorum. Unfortunately, I apologize for that. But the road was considered satisfactory, and something that you were not responsible for that was, we found out after the fact. You explained to me that there was some trees that had been cut down that were on the sidewalk and in the roadway, and it was
We were surprised to see that as well. It has been taken care
yeah,
of since.
right, and it was by a building permit that we had subsequently received from is
Right.
it Mark Davio.
That's right, yeah. They're building on that end lot there.
So he took responsibility for that, and it has been cleaned up.
It has been cleaned up, yes. We verified that, yeah.
And there was no other issues that we could see, so I have notified the treasurer that we were meeting on this, and
Okay.
she found the bond because she's took over after Donna
Okay. Whiteley?
Whiteley,
Yep.
so she was unfamiliar with whatever, so
Oh, okay,
she
yeah.
did find it, and I told her that after we voted on it at the meeting that I would notify her, and then you could pick that up personally at her office tomorrow, for that
Okay,
matter.
perfect.
I'll remember to email her in the morning.
Okay.
So if anybody on the board have any other further questions about Quigley Road and its,
Remember that went out and saw it a couple weeks ago?
Keith?
Yeah, everything looked good, other than the trees, so.
Okay.
But that's been taken care of.
So we met all the criteria and
Yeah,
they've
the
met
road
the
was
time
accepted,
criteria?
actually, the road was accepted, was it last January, or?
It was February of
February.
19 that was
Last
officially
February
accepted at town meeting.
The road was accepted,
Right.
but the subdivision regulations state that the bond has to stay in place 1 year after the completion, and it's accepted just in case anything should arise that needed to be fixed. Do I have a motion on that for the release of the bond?
I move to release the bond, given the information we just heard.
Second.
Motion was made by Cindy and seconded by Paul. Is there any other further discussion? All in favor? Aye. So 3-0-1 recused.
So I'll get in touch with Jennifer to get
Yeah,
that
I'll
tomorrow?
email her in the
Perfect.
morning, and then you can go down there and...
Okay. I would like to take a moment to thank you, especially you, Chair Demon, for all of your help. It's not been an easy process for any of us involved, but I do appreciate it. I know everyone here is a volunteer, and I know it's hard to sit behind that desk at times and deal with people like us. So I thank you for all of your effort, time, and patience. Thank you.
Thank you for your understanding.
Holidays, Heather.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, Heather.
Second on the agenda is, we have it, and Mark, you can speak to this, but it's a notice of intent from Charles Fisher. Were you involved in that?
It was an A&R,
No, but
a
also,
notice for release.
Chapter 61A.
One, yes, yes, for 3 lots. Correct.
yeah, it's down in your packet at the Board of Assessors. There's the cover sheet on it. Map 27, parcel 6 on Fulmer Road. one parcel 1.378, one parcel 1.536 acres, and one parcel 1.491 acres. And we were asked if we want to waive our right of first refusal for these 3 lots for, in essence, it looks like it's what, under 5 acres? Of the total amount?
And they all abut each other?
1, 2,
They're all
3.
contiguous?
Yeah, they're all side by side.
Yeah, and they're not,
Just before you, as you're going down Fulmer Road, on the left, just before you get to Crooked Ledge Road, there's 3 lots, side by side.
and they're not connected in any way to any other conservation land up there
No,
or
it's
anything?
not. They're not.
Okay.
And it's connected by other land that the Fishers own, and in a butter to the east.
These are the parcels that there's been some clearing activity on?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
he's in the process of logging the entire piece of property.
Yeah,
He's got a forest cutting plan
yeah, okay.
that was
Yep.
approved by,
Drive by it every day, yeah. Yep.
correct, those are the lots.
And those, we had previously did A&Rs on those, right?
Correct, you did.
Right, that's
At
what
your
I'm saying.
meeting last month.
Right, right.
Yes.
And just to review, Cindy, we typically, A&Rs will come before us that we approve, and yet we don't know, but in several instances, they come back to take it out of Chapter 61A, similar to the parcel up on Glendale, similar to the parcel on Pomeroy Meadow Road, and now this particular one.
Right.
Any other questions or concerns or inquiries for Mark about this property? Because I have to forward our comments to the town administrator and the select board because they have to act on it.
Yeah, I don't have any other further comments. It's nice property, but I don't think it has any further value to the town as conservation land. So I would be of the opinion that we waive our right of first refusal, but that's my opinion.
Paul?
I agree with Keith.
Cindy?
So in the master plan as well as the open space and recreation plan, that the open space and recreation plan is in the process of being updated, it's noted that what we need to develop some kind of prioritization for lands that we want to see conserved, but we don't have it. It's never taken place. It's in those plans. We can't find it, that anybody ever picked up that ball and ran with it. So I don't know if this is land that's in a wildlife corridor or has any historical or archaeological or any kind of value. I know it's it's right on the road, right? So these are building lots, and those have been approved already. And I know the town just can't buy every single piece of land that comes up. I'm well aware of that. I can't think of any reason other than where we as a town are okay with this, that we sell out, we see these lots that are so beautiful and wooded and whatever are developed. And outside of just kind of going on a long-winded expression of concern that we don't have enough additional data, I can't come up with any reason not to approve this.
What I can say about this particular parcel,
Yeah.
Cindy, since I drive by it every day, is it is pretty well road locked.
Okay.
There's Fulmer Road on one side, Crooked Ledge on the other. I mean, it's
So I know you drive it every day, and I've only driven it
Yeah.
6 times in the last.
wait, yeah, let me draw you a quick map. So here's Russellville, Fulmer, and then
There's
Crooked. So if you were driving, so down here is Route 10,
Yep.
take a left on the Fulmer,
Yep.
here's the highway garage. Fulmer kind of turns right
Yep.
this way. Russellville continues,
Correct.
Crooked Ledge connects.
Yep.
So those parcels are in here.
Okay, and I think Mr. Fisher's house is like right here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
so it's,
Yeah,
you know, it's not part of a congruous mass
Yeah,
land area.
yeah.
It's roadblocked, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Without any further ado, we got a motion to waive our right of first refusal on this Charles Fisher property on Fulmer Road.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Keith and seconded by Paul. Any other further discussion?
I have none.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
At this time, we have a public hearing scheduled, and I will have our
I'll read it.
clerk of record here tonight read the public hearing notice.
Sure.
Ahead.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. This was published in the Daily Hampshire Gazette, November 25th, 2019. And the 18th. Southampton Planning Board, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provision of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5. The Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, December 4th, 2019 at 7 p.m. at the Southampton Town Hall first floor meeting room on a request from Eugene Labrie, Valley Road, for a zone map amendment to change Assessors Parcel 26, Map 39, College Highway and Valley Road, from Industrial Park to Commercial Highway. A copy of the application may be inspected at the Town Hall Clerk's office Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on this request should appear at the aforementioned time and place. Signed, Paul Demon, Chair, Southampton Planning Board.
Okay, and do you have the abutter mailings and the
Yes.
postal receipt? This is Mark Reed,
So,
who
yes,
is...
for the record, Mark Reed from Heritage Surveys, representing Eugene Labrie as the owner of the property. And I do have copies of the certified list of abutters. One was not picked up, and we have one that's not matured yet, but was sent out. I also have a check in the amount of $334.54 for the legal ad. So in discussions with Mr. Labrie, they would like to propose this zone change to their property, which currently houses, there's a large red barn that sits on the property that everyone drives by all the time. And currently that property is zoned industrial, and they would like to change it to commercial highway because they feel that as a gateway into Southampton, a commercial property would be better than an industrial property. Trying to preserve the barn for commercial use and not have some larger industrial use need to remove that barn. They want to preserve it. So they have had inquiries from a couple different people to put in a commercial type entity in that barn and preserve the barn. But currently, it's zoned industrial, so those types of commercial entities could not be put in under the zoning. So what I did was I've got copies of the zoning bylaw and sections that I can give the board.
By the way, this isn't pertinent to, that must be wrong envelope. That's a notice of intent for conservation.
Okay. Oh, so there's two cards back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what I did was, I highlighted in the subsequent pages, this is right out of the Southampton zoning bylaw. Sections in yellow deal with what could be built if the property was rezoned as commercial highway. There's a number of items under retail and services that could be permitted either by special permit through the Zoning Board of Appeals or by right for such as a retail establishment selling convenience goods. A bank, for instance, a professional office. So the list goes on in subsequent pages. And then I highlighted in orange what could be built currently by right, because it is zone industrial, as what could be done for manufacturing, freight terminals, warehouses, open storage of materials, so forth and so on, that could be built there today by right, either by permitted use or a special permit by the Planning Board or Zoning Board of Appeals. So that you can kind of see that right now it's industrial, it's more of a commercial or industrial piece of property that would allow for manufacturing. Manufacturing in that old barn really doesn't work for anyone that wants to manufacture anything in that. It's not conducive to manufacturing. Wouldn't be conducive to construction industries or supplies, freight terminals, and so forth. So their goal is to preserve the barn and to try to develop the piece of property long-term as more of a commercial highway and more of a gateway look to Southampton than an industrial look. There is other commercial properties nearby, not abutting it, but nearby. Wintergreen Kennels is right on the town line. Across the street, there's a repair Tarkin's gas station right on the town line. Further up the road, there's an office building that has been there for many, many years. It looks like a barn, and part of it too. It used to be O'Leary contracting company. It's on the same side of the road, just before you start going down the hill. And there's a construction company there, also Kent Brothers Construction Company in that location. So their main goal is, again, to try to preserve the barn and to better have a more commercial highway look than an industrial look. The zones change also would not allow any marijuana facilities. Currently, in an industrial zone, it's the only place you can put a marijuana facility. So that that would prohibit, a marijuana dispensary or growing facility there on the property for that. They don't have any current people that want to move in there if the zone change was approved by the town. It's got to go before a town meeting vote. But they're trying to look for the future, trying to preserve the barn.
What's the total acreage there of that entire parcel?
The entire parcel.
That's left.
So that's the entire parcel. That's a good question, Paul.
And I'm assuming it stretches from Valley all the way down to the orchard, maybe?
So that the industrial land goes all the way from College Highway on the south side of Valley Road to Brickyard Road, just before Brickyard Road. The Kinnicky Farm has got a conservation restriction on it, so it's preserved as a farm. So that the Kinnicky's farm is about halfway. Once you go down Valley Road, it crests and starts going down the hill. So the property line between the LaBrie's property and the Kinnicky property is about halfway down.
Yeah, but I mean, just this parcel that's being asked to be rezoned on,
Oh, how many acres is the
yeah,
zone there?
yeah, the
Oh,
one
I'm sorry.
that's going from
So it's 14.7 acres.
14 point, and again, that probably goes down to the, and abuts the orchard? Or is there something,
No, the southerly abutter is the Wing Farm.
okay, this is another farm there?
So there's so the Wings Farm, across the street is their barns.
Yep.
On the east side of College Highway.
Yep,
But this is on the west side of the College Highway is a field, farm field. And then you get to the orchards.
so there's that one parcel, the Wing Farm, that's zoned agriculture? Or,
Currently in agricultural, actually this piece right now is being used as agricultural, but it's zoned industrial.
so the Wing Farm parcel is zoned industrial?
Correct,
Oh, it is.
yeah. And that industrial land goes all the way down to the town line between Southampton and Westfield.
Okay, thank you.
But what we're asking for is 14.7 acres to be converted into the commercial highway.
So you said some inquiries have been made, or they have entertained discussion somewhere along the line, yet they're not committing, or nor are you able to say what kinds of business, or specifically because of the inquiries, what businesses
Yeah, so-
likely would go into there?
Well, they've had discussions with somebody that wants to do a brewery, for instance,
A brewery,
in that building, in the barn.
including the retail aspect of the brewery, not just making the
Right.
beer? Okay,
Have a brewery.
like a
that-
restaurant and a,
Yeah, like you would, I don't know if you're familiar with Easthampton or other
Sure,
communities
yeah.
that have a brewery and tasting, so forth. That's one aspect of what could go in there if the zone change was allowed, to preserve the barn, and it would be kind of a unique looking brewery, to, an old barn converted into a brewery for it. They mentioned that they had a couple other people that might want to do a mixed kind of a restaurant or, something else, and that might go in there, so. But they don't have anyone that's, right now they're
Yeah, they're just in, they're just in,
trying to preserve the barn.
yeah, they're just inquiries at this point.
Right. Right.
Do you have a map of the parcel?
I do. It's part of your packet.
I don't have that in there, no.
Oh, well, you don't,
I didn't have that.
Oh, all right.
So what's the distance that it goes south?
So here's the zoning map.
So how far south is this?
What's the frontage on Route 10
What's the
then?
frontage?
I would have to look that up.
Kitty conditions or scale? Just do it based on the width of Route 10. Why is Route 10?
You're human.
It's not human. Good heavens.
Okay, here's the assessors.
Healthy opportunities.
Here's the copy of the assessors.
you happen to know how all of that area got done industrial?
Yeah, that whole, oh, you're looking at the same thing I am.
Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah.
when and how did this all get purple, do you know?
How long ago?
Yeah. So,
Oh, God. Barbara? 20-plus years, more than that? Yeah.
So this is, of course, it's on two maps, so it splits it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's how we like it.
So, I have to add those up. But this is kind of the married up of the map. So their property. 206, so that's 550, plus another 350.
900.
700, plus another 80. 80. So approximately, just over 800 feet.
And that goes down to that wing farm
And it
line?
goes down to the wing farm.
Yeah.
Start this piece too, so it's 26, 28.
That's the wing farm.
Okay, so it's just 26.
Yes. So it's about 800 feet. It has been surveyed. An old barn deed that runs.
So you raised the possibility, you certainly are not saying it's going to happen, but a brewery it'd be one type of business that has at least
Correct.
been considered. And the tasting room idea, and I'm thinking of Glendale Ridge on Glendale Road. And I'm looking at the zoning. That must have been special permit or something, because it's all zoned residential on Glendale Road. How did they get passed?
Well,
Far.
it's a
They
farm.
got it because it's a farm.
It's a farm. That's the difference. This is a farm. So,
Oh, okay.
yes.
So just because they're a farm, they could do this tasting room thing and the,
So Cindy,
And they got special permits from the town.
the chart that Mark gave out, the third page in, page 5.3, it gives you, when he highlighted, it does give you a scenario, if this were to be changed to commercial highway, the different options, retail,
yep,
eating and drinking places, establishments selling motor vehicles and or accessories, hotels, motels, lodging
Yeah,
house.
but what I'm saying is, it's possible that it could be a special permit, it could remain
Oh,
industrial.
yeah, a number of these, okay?
Yeah.
So if you look at that category that Paul's talking about on 5.3, if it has an S after it,
Yep,
it's a
I-
special
I
permit by the
understood that,
zoning
yeah.
board of appeals.
right.
If it's an SDS, then it's a special permit from the planning board.
And currently with that permit that the zoning board would look at, if this, again, were to change to commercial highway, the site plan approval, that process that they currently have under their jurisdiction would take into consideration and condition, what the site would look like and get some feedback on that, because it is a gateway to the town. So
Right.
they could control somewhat the commercial look of it in that area.
Now, on that map that, in front of Paul here, not all of the 14 acres is buildable because there are wetlands on it.
Right. You're basically just talking the frontage and so far back from College Highway.
So the determination that we made was to change it at the wing property line to the south, and then go from a point where their corner is to the corner of the Jamie Tools property, and bring it back to the highway, or bring it back to Valley Road.
You're just following the existing property line.
Correct.
Missing, they can,
So this is the existing property line between the wing farm
right.
and the Labrie.
So he's following the parcel.
This is a new line, this would be a new line, this doesn't exist. The Labries, this parcel currently, this is the parcel.
So this is the 14 acres, 14.7, it's just the red outline.
Correct. This would remain industrial, the remaining piece of it behind Janey Tools and the new storage warehouse they built. That's all gonna stay industrial. So it's just that corner, the 14.7 acres, which is being proposed to change.
Why would they do such a large part of it then, if they're only talking about the barn?
Well,
Are they thinking
most of the time you try
future- if-
to, when you look at zone change, or zone lines,
Yeah.
you try to follow property lines.
Yeah, but you already said the property line
So-
goes way out
so that's why-
around.
So that's why we ran between,
Yeah, that
That-
part
Well,
makes
it
sense.
creates an opportunity for other businesses to
That's
come in.
what I'm thinking.
right,
You know,
So maybe
agreed that
they-
there's some wetlands, so there would have to be considerations of that, but
correct.
essentially, over time, this could be a very different look than just a red barn.
Correct. It could be, for sure. Right now, as industrial land, they could have multiple industrial parcels going along College Highway. There's, you know, if there's over 800 feet of frontage on College Highway, they could have multiple,
Could put a bunch of bus terminals in there by right.
yeah, whatever they might want to
Come
do.
with bus terminals.
Saying, that's by right.
So yeah, I mean, you know, right now, the possibility, if there was no zone change, there could be multiple industrial uses along
Right.
College Highway.
Right,
There's other considerations, like you say, there's wetlands, topography, soils, all has to be looked at in the
Right.
bigger picture
yeah.
down the road.
The Westfield sewer doesn't go up that far, does it? No.
No, it doesn't.
Is that what Mark, or not Mark, but Ryan Gielaher said, that it really only goes to Cumberland Farms, and that's as far as that goes?
Correct,
Which is the Westfield property, it never comes into Southampton.
correct. Yeah, it stops at Cumberland Farms. They extended it up to service Cumberland Farms when they built that. And that's as far as it goes on College Highway.
Okay, right.
So this is a question for you, because you know a lot about development, but I'm thinking about water use in our town. We know we're in a really critical place right now in terms of water, and we're at capacity with our own wells. Would retail space perhaps utilize more water than industrial, and would they be using town water? Are they going to drop their own well, or what do you know about that?
It really depends on the use. I mean, some industries use,
Breweries probably use a lot of water.
Water.
Just thinking.
yeah, I mean, it really doesn't.
water in beer?
I think they're going to import period.
So would they be utilizing town water? Would that be your
Yes.
understanding? They would be utilizing town water and
Correct.
building their own wastewater treatment
Facility on site,
plant on
correct?
site?
Yep.
Yeah.
They would have to investigate
Yeah.
that, like they would for an industrial piece.
Right. So can we talk about this thing that came from Ken Coleman?
Actually, I'd like to ask the public for any comments right now, and then we'll address what Ken said. So, Mark, if you would just kind of
Sure.
stand by, and if anybody here from the public would like to comment on this change, I invite you to come before the podium and state your name and address and tell us what you think.
I'm Barbara LaFlamme, 20 Cook Road. I don't have a real comment, it's a question. How much industrial land, which is separate from this actually, is how much industrial land do we have available? As far as I know, it's very limited in the town of Southampton, and are we giving up that possibility of getting industry in town? Just a question.
That's the biggest chunk up there, up on Valley. Then you've got down on Clark Street behind your office, right? And
That's the only purple, is that,
Right.
that's just one.
I think this raises an excellent discussion point about the concept of, given that if you were looking for a quick sewer fix for a potential residential.
Yeah, and probably.
This came out, this mic doesn't work. Oh, there it is. Brings up an interesting question about limiting future sewer connections to where it's currently available, meaning in Westfield being down the street. We have not a lot of industrial space in town, yet the space we do have is positioned near opportunities for sewerage to be interconnected to those parcels, particularly this site here, which is just north of the city line, the Westfield city line. So, the fact of the matter is, you're making an opportunity for commercial to come into a space that's been zoned industrial, thus making industry potential elsewhere not really feasible without sewer.
Good point.
But the same may apply to business too. In order to maximize the use of a piece of property, you may want to put in, even for a business, for a commercial highway use, you may want to put sewer, such as they did up in front of Big Y. Harley Davidson, the car wash, Big Y, Credit Union,
Pure Food.
all that pumps up to Easthampton. The sewer connects up to Easthampton to take advantage of that.
But where else in town do we have that opportunity as easy as it is here for industrial?
industrial?
Yeah,
Probably not, you're right.
right. That's the point.
Yep.
I mean, based on the table of uses, though, I don't know if, my opinion is, I don't know if an industrial use or a commercial use would create a greater demand for sewer. I mean, you could put a bus passenger terminal or a freight terminal and warehousing. I don't know if that would create a increased demand for sewer over a commercial use. I don't know. It depends what type of establishment was proposed. So I think there's definitely industrial uses that wouldn't necessarily create a need for sewer. Conversely, I think there's commercial uses that could create a need for sewer. So, but it entirely depends on what is developed.
To answer Barbara's original question, there's only two, the one there up on Valley and College Highway, and then down here on Clark Street, Marvin Keystone area. Yes.
Chris Fowles, Gun Road. Just a couple of questions. Mark, you were talking about how they wanted to protect the Red Barn, and I guess I'm not clear from what you've said about what are the threats to the Red Barn. I mean, what is the problem with the Red Barn that to me looks like a rural area when I drive by it? I have no concept that that's really an industrial zoned area whatsoever. So what are really the threats that are presenting themselves all of a sudden to this area that make them want to make this change? And then are we risking having, if we go into a commercial, are we risking sort of the strip mall phase with this, the Red Barn kind of being the anchor point, but then maybe a set of developments that maybe are not as attractive as the Red Barn? And then thirdly, I guess, is there not, I would assume for the few industries that we have in town, I believe there have been some sort of tax abatements for those industries to exist, and what would be the impact if this was changed from industrial to commercial? Thanks.
Sir, anything you'd like to say? Virginia? No?
I mean, maybe to answer one of the questions about the existence of the Red Barn, Mark mentioned earlier, and I tend to agree with it, that I think the Red Barn necessarily wouldn't serve a good industrial use, that's the current zoning. So I tend to agree. I think there's more of an opportunity to reuse and salvage the Red Barn in a commercial use. I tend to agree with that. I don't know how the rest of the board members feel, but I think the change in zoning may create a better opportunity to preserve the barn, just because it would facilitate a better use of that existing structure. I can't see putting a machine shop in a barn. I can see putting a brewery in a barn, but.
So my questions, and I'm not sure Chris's were fully answered.
I have no idea about abatements.
About taxation, yeah, I don't know if the tax rates vary between industrial or commercial zones.
I would have thought that for
Any incentives, you mean, for tax relief? I would doubt seriously for commercial, maybe for industrial, but not commercial.
To my knowledge, I don't think there's any local incentives granted to anyone that wants to build either industrial or commercial for the town to come up. State-wise, that's different, but the town of Southampton has never said, we'll waive your taxes for the next 5 years if you come to Southampton. To my knowledge, I don't know, Barbara.
I'm trying to think back.
So, but I know statewide, you can apply for a state.
How about solar farm? Does that have an incentive, a tax incentive locally?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not,
No.
no.
Not that I'm aware of. If you're gonna do solar, no. Not that I'm aware of.
I can't put my finger on
Yeah,
any
right.
specific.
But I know on the state level, you could apply or you can apply.
No, I thought there was some special incentive to sort of either, I don't know, reduce taxes or something for the industrial area to make that attractive for somebody to come in and do that. And so my question was, if that changed from industrial to commercial, does that go with the property, or is that a separate thing dead in the water? So I don't know, that would be an assessor's question, I guess.
Right, I'm not, I don't believe so in Southampton, but I'm not 100% sure.
So,
I'd like to,
can,
oh, go ahead.
just a couple thoughts. Keith was stating that he couldn't quite see an industrial use for the barn, and, unless you were shodding horses or something like that, I suppose that would be industrial, but I also don't know that changing the zoning, in the short term, it may preserve the barn and the rural look, and it is a pretty barn. But in the long run, it could become a teeny-weeny little strip mall, and it could include, multiple businesses, and therefore the preservation of the barn look will kind of become a moot point. That's one thought I have. And thus, if we didn't, it didn't happen that there was a zoning change and it remained industrial, and the industry went in there and they said, well, the barn's in the way, we're going to raise the barn, then you lost the barn anyway. I don't know. It's already zoned industrial, so I'm not terribly convinced right now that this is the right thing for myself. And there is one other point, and we have enjoyed the consultancy of Larry Smith several times here, at least my period of time here, and he, raised to me, at least what I heard from him, was a concern that when you start making these zoning changes, it sort of kind of grows upon itself, and we have such limited industrial zoning in our town. I have a personal enjoyment of that rural look right down there. I mean, it could change if a big industry came in. But I don't know. I'm not so sure it hits me right at a personal level. That's how I feel right now. I like the way it looks.
My thinking is, and as long as I've been on the board, and Barbara, you said that has been zoned industrial for 20-plus years, we haven't had anybody come forward to develop that in an industrial way. So, and for probably a lot of reasons in town, and I don't know what they all are. There's not a lot of requests even in the industrial park down here on Clark Street. Someone for industrial manufacturing looking to be here. We just came through a somewhat, I won't say contentious, but it was very important to townspeople on the College Highway property up here by the old Opa and across from the cemetery a few weeks back. That created a big stir. Because it's a village character they didn't want destroyed. On one hand, we're trying to develop commercial properties in towns for our tax base, and another time we're fighting with the rural and the village character that would prevent any of that growth. So now we've got a parcel that's on the direct opposite of town that has no village character. It has a rural character to it. But its potential for any kind of commercial growth to town here by changing it would be appealing. I didn't personally get a lot of negativity from our decision to pass this on to town meeting, saying that we weren't in favor of the change in the historical district. But there were several people in town that were not pleased with our decision, but that's not the final vote, and people had a misconception that the town is going to vote on that, whether we endorse the plan or we didn't. And it's going to happen the same way with this plan, whether we endorse it or not. It's still going to town meeting, and the town will have its final say.
Right.
So I still believe that if it's been nothing happening industrial, it has a potential in the commercial, and again, under site plan approval, it can be tastefully controlled by design, what it looks like, so it doesn't destroy that rural character up there. And it doesn't mean that this is going to prompt us to then rezone the opposite side of the street or the north side of College Highway where there's residences. So it's, personally, I just think going from industrial to commercial makes a lot more sense than going from residential to commercial, because that's a big change.
Right. So I guess my viewpoint of, in all the years that I've been dealing with different people in Southampton, is one of the reasons we don't have industrial is because we don't have sewer.
Right.
So, typical industrial user wants sewer. So they go to Easthampton or Westfield because they have sewer. Southampton doesn't have the sewer. So I think that's one of the reasons you don't see industrial growth in town, because we don't have the sewer. And a lot of the plants need to have sewer for whatever they're doing for their manufacturing. There's certain manufacturing facilities that can't put their waste, for instance, into an on-site sewage disposal system by the code, by sanitary code. It has to go into a municipal sewer system. So I think that's probably one of the reasons you don't see another Marmot Keystone or growing in town with that. Whereas
Don't you think, too?
the other end of town near Big Y and so forth has grown for many reasons, but I think one of the reasons some of the newer growth has come in here is because they were able to connect into
Right.
Easthampton sewer. But that's not industrial, that's all commercial highway.
And don't you think that if this parcel were rezoned commercial, that the size and the nature of the business going in there, being cognizant of the no sewer, is going to be, they're not going to spend tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop a septic system for the business they have. I can envision smaller businesses maybe going in there knowing that they didn't want to make that kind of an investment with a septic system. Probably the biggest one in town is maybe Paisanos, for their operation. But I don't think you'll find too many people with that want to throw that kind of money into infrastructure, and it'll keep down the size of the types of businesses that may go in there.
And it all depends on, topography, soils, wetlands that are shown on that, and how big you can do it. Some of the zoning districts show a distance of 600 or 800 feet from the center line of a roadway back. It's not necessarily a property line. We have a lot of that in our zoning map that has a distance off of a roadway back that then changes to a different zone. So for instance, on Palmer Road, the front part of it is RN, but then you get to the back of the properties and it's RR, residential rural, towards the back of it, so.
I'd like to read into the record from our consultant, which is now Ken Comia from Pioneer Valley Planning. his comments regarding this. At face value, the request would not be consistent with the uniformity clause of Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 4, requiring any bylaw which divides cities and towns into districts shall be uniform within the district for each class or kind of structures or uses permitted. The adjacent parcels are zoned residential neighborhood to the north and east and zoned industrial park to the south and west of the parcel. Types of uses permitted in the industrial park zoning district include some agriculture, community facilities, wholesale, transportation, and industrial uses by right, with some uses requiring special permits and site plan review like solar development and manufacturing, professional and business offices, planned business development. The differences between the commercial highway district and the industrial park district and the uses that are allowed in each of the zones reflect that the commercial highway zoning district permits either by right or with a special permit retail and service uses, auto sales and repair, and other types of consumer service establishment. And he just goes on to say that the proposal has to go to town hall for a vote and planning board, et cetera, but that's Ken's comment. Did you have a question about that, Cindy?
No,
No.
you answered it by reading it out loud.
I think we keep talking about this barn. There's no guarantee that the barn's going to be protected. So that's, you know, that's a moot point, I think. That's a moot point.
Yeah, it's the hope, it's the goal, because of the.
The shiny star.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately, no one has a crystal ball to say that it's gonna last there forever and what's gonna go in it. With any piece of property. Yes, you're right, but that's what they like to preserve.
Right, but
So that the current people that approach them and live in the barn wouldn't be able to move into the barn because it's not zoned properly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this particular idea is not uncommon. I've heard of at least 3 or read about 3 in the area that have used former farms for brewery operation. The closest around here, I think, is out in Barry, Mass. It's called the Stone Cow Brewery. Very tastefully done. In Easthampton, Fort Hill has the look of a farm, even though it's probably on farm land. The building itself is very tastefully done in a farm style. But yeah, ideally, that you could hope for that, but there's no guarantee.
I guess the way I'm looking at this is, I'm not even considering the barn. To me, it's, if it stays, great. If it's raised, which it could be raised whether this stays industrial or is converted to commercial, what I'm looking at is the parcel as it sits, considering the surrounding infrastructure. Would it be better served as a commercial use to promote potential commercial development? Would it be better served to remain as industrial to promote industrial development? Based on the lack of infrastructure, I'm of the opinion it would be better served as a commercial parcel. I think there's more of an opportunity to develop it in a commercial nature than in an industrial nature.
Does Marvin Keystone have its own wastewater treatment or sewer?
Yeah.
Must, yeah,
It must.
right? They're not connected to the sewer.
No.
it has a standard septic system that, like you and I have.
They put in
It's
when they built the building.
different sized,
Yeah,
so forth,
yeah.
to facilitate their building.
Yeah.
But it's not a treatment plant, it's not a,
No. How many do they employ?
I really don't know,
20, 30?
maybe 20 or 30,
Yeah.
based on the cars you see parked out there.
So it's sized accordingly.
Yeah.
You seem confused, Paul.
Oh, I'm not confused. I have an opinion. It's just the charade of the farm. I mean, a barn. I mean, why even bring it up?
The selling point.
That's what they like to try.
I know it's a selling point, but, people are, initially when I heard about this, it's like, oh, we're going to be trying to save the barn and putting a brewery in. Like, great idea. I mean, obviously, we don't want to put a stipulation on the condition, not that we could, but it's.
Barn's gone, the barn's already knocked down.
Right, I know,
It's
but
not
the point
there.
is, why even bring it up? That's my point. Right? Right, it seems ridiculous to even bring it up. But, I too think it's not a bad site for retail, or, not retail, but commercial. The point is, I'm not thrilled about the whole barn discussion, because it's creating this false narrative that, we're going to see a Save the Barn Facebook page soon, right? And it's, no, I'm just, it's this false pretense that is going to be repeated.
Are you suggesting that there's another pretense that we're not hearing? That there actually is another, potential developer that if we to see the
Walmart.
zoning
It's a
changes?
Walmart.
Here's what's going to happen. It's going to open up the floodgates to potential, with the commercial change, it's going to certainly, I see this being developed to several commercial parcels like this, which is not a bad thing, but why not just say that? And it seems like we're afraid to say that. It's like we're dancing around the fact that we want to save the barn, which it's a great idea, but there's no guarantee that it's going to happen. So, just say it. Say it.
The barn is gone, they said it already.
I said the barn's gone. There's a Dunkin' Donuts going in there. I mean, there's something else. I mean,
Barbara,
that's what could happen. That's the reality.
Barbara,
I know a guy that's looking to build
guy.
a Dunkin' Donuts.
Barbara, don't mention the barn. What would you like to say?
Oh, I was just going to come and talk about the barn and how beautiful it is.
It's gone. It's knocked down. It's gone. I don't want to hear about the barn.
Let's Photoshop it out.
And our zoning and some of our open space regulations talk about the vistas in our town. I know a lot of people don't care about our vistas and the rural character of our town, but I think there are a lot of people that do. And if the barn can be saved and this is a viable option, I would recommend that you do save the barn if you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Well, and along the lines of what Barbara's just mentioned, there is this idea, now forget the barn, but there is this, we burned the barn already, the whole idea of maintaining the rural character, et cetera, and we are in the process right now, Paul and I are on this committee, of updating the open space and recreation plan, and it is going to include community visioning, and so the timing of this is a concern for me. I mean, I'm sure nobody sat back and said, oh, we better hold off and not do this now in terms of the zone change requests, but we want to make sure we are representing what the community is really interested in, and the rural character and the scenic views and all that are historically what we have said we wanted in this town. This will change that. Now, granted,
No, it
if
won't.
they put it in industrial...
It won't change anything in terms of preserving that view. It could be an industrial park tomorrow.
It could be, you're absolutely right.
So
And-
don't worry about the views, don't worry about the barn.
As you look at the parcel, it's 100 times more attractive as a commercial spot, hands down. Because you open up the potential for so many different types
Different
of
retail uses, sure.
retail
Yeah.
uses, commercial
Yep.
uses that are not necessarily hinged on sewer usage. So, to me, there's pluses and minuses with this going to a commercial from industrial. But the fact is, it's been like that for how many years, and
Right.
it's just laying.
The way I'm looking at it is it's an industrial piece now. What is the best way to promote it to be developed? Like you were just saying, it's been industrial for how many years and nothing's happened there. So, and I think it would be a very attractive commercial piece.
Maybe you folks don't know the answer to this, or maybe somebody does. Has there ever been like an active, activity to try to bring in some large industry to go into this currently zoned industrial property.
idea.
Is it just left there?
So
We don't
here's-
have an economic developer.
Yeah, that's right, right.
Here's something we gotta think about. What's 3 miles south of us, of the site? Westfield.
Yes,
Right.
right, right.
That's our competitor, right?
And they're going there because they have infrastructure. Tax rate, I don't have the comparisons.
Oh, it's high, but they don't, big business likes it.
They're
in
closer
Westfield.
to the Route 90, yeah.
Right. So the fact of the matter is, we're sort of overly optimistic about this parcel being industrial, where we have a competitor that's 3 miles south that has a significant amount of industrial land that's still not fully developed. And there's a reason why, Target wants to put a facility there. There's a reason why Old Dominion's coming into town. There's a reason why Dewey Pile is putting a facility there or expanding their facilities there. There's a reason why you have this draw to Westfield. They have the infrastructure, they have the sewer, they have the turnpike, that they have other favorable components that we do not have. And do we let this stay vacant or should I say undeveloped as a barn, which would please many people, but as an industrial site, it's not yielding anything to the
Right.
town.
Can I speak one more time?
Yeah.
Oh. Third time, that's it, though. So make it a good one.
Barbara LaFlamme, 20 Cook Road. I think we want to be business-friendly. Businesses support all kinds of activities that we do here in Southampton. When we're fundraising for the Mothers Club or we're fundraising for the schools and so forth, we look to our businesses as a source of charitable giving, and we also look to support our tax base. And I think developing it for commercial use will generate additional tax revenue and not put a lot of burden as residential use might, or a commercial or industrial might. So I think the presentation and the conversations that we've had since would indicate that there is support for the concept of changing the zoning and then taking it to the townspeople to see what they have to say. They're the final voice, and that's where the ultimate decision should be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, good points.
Thanks, Barbara.
Anyone else want to speak on this before I ask for a motion to close the public hearing? Then I will entertain a motion if someone will put one forth to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any other further discussion?
I have none.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I ask for a motion to forward to town meeting our endorsement or disapproval, or we take no stance.
I'd make a motion to issue a favorable endorsement on this zone change to the Board of Selectmen and to town meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made by Keith and seconded by Paul that we endorse this zone change to town meeting for their vote. Any other further discussion? Yes.
I am not going to agree to the endorsement, but I liked your option that you threw out, although the motion was for endorsement, of making no comment on the part of the planning board and allowing, town residents to speak. That's how I feel at this point.
So we'll vote without any further discussion. All in favor to proceed with this? Aye.
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 By proceed with this, you mean
Yeah.
endorse it?
Favorable endorsed. So I think you maybe want to abstain or vote no, or we'll.
You want to abstain or no, Cindy?
I'm going to say no.
Okay, 3-1-0. Very good. This wraps this up, and I'll send it off to Ed Gibson, and I believe that's going to be on the warrant for, is it January or February town
I'm
meeting?
not sure when the,
January, I think. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, gentlemen, for weighing in on this. One other agenda item I have, I approved it in between our two meetings because we canceled the last time because of a lack of a quorum and because it was an insignificant project. But Mark Davio is building a house on the property of 9 Quigley Road, lot number 3, and it was well under the disturbance area that we require, so I signed it and passed it off to him. Now I have just information in the board's opinion on this. I received an email from a solar person that is doing a job, was contracted to do a job for a solar project up on Wyben Road. Now, he claims the applicant has got a couple of structures outside, not the main house, but he called them pergolas. And he wants to have the solar panels erected on the pergolas. And he wanted Art Lawrence from the building inspector's office sent him to this board because he said you may want to check with them because if there's any other permits. But in your mind, since it's not on the rooftop of a house and it's not a ground structure and it's on a pergola, is that going to go under the regular regs for rooftop? Or do we need to look at that as a...
I thought we already approved this back in,
There was one approved a while back. It's not the same applicant, I don't believe.
how did we rule that one?
He came to us because it was an outside structure, but I think, in my recollection was that, in retrospect, we said that it was really, if it's a roof mount, or it's on another structure or something, it wouldn't need, because the building inspector has already verified the setbacks and the placement of it, which is within the boundaries of the property, but that gray area whether it's a rooftop on a pergola, but not the main house.
I think, I do not recall the details, but I think we're on the same page. But one thing that I would suggest, we treat this as if we had treated the previous one. We provide the same recommendation as we've done with the pergola one that was on the rooftop there. And I forget how that was.
Yeah, I mean, all
Voted.
roof-mounted solar facilities are permitted by right in all zones.
Right, in the literal sense, you're correct.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we were agreeing on.
That's why I think in the end, when he was before us, after further discussion, this is just my recollection without reading the minutes or going into the file, but thought afterwards that he really didn't need to come here in the end. It could have been, just a simple building permit.
I just from a surety standpoint, I think we want to just look that up potentially to see how just so we don't contradict ourselves.
All right. Even though, yeah, I'll have to look back at the minutes because I know he applied and he came to the meeting. It just was necessary in the end that he did, that's all. We put him through the paces, but in the end, we thought it wasn't really necessary. You want me to look it up, check it out?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious it's permitted by right. I say we just move on this. That'd be my opinion. Right, he's looking to get going on this now?
Well, he had submitted the building permit, and as I say, Art just held him off a minute, and he said, geez, he had a question because Tom Quinlan wasn't in at the time. He just said, you may want to run it by the planning board because Art wasn't sure.
Yeah, I can't see how we would decide otherwise. I mean, roof-mounted solar, it doesn't say
Ground.
ground, it doesn't say what the roof structure needs to be, the height of the roof structure, minimum heights, it's just a roof-mounted structure. It's clearly not gonna be mounted on the ground. If it was mounted on the ground, it's a different story.
My only point is, just, did we have conditions, or did we say something like, you know, did you,
I see what you mean, yeah. See if there's any conditions on
did
it.
we have any conditions for the structure component? Because I
Well,
don't know.
the structure will be subject to current regulations as far as setbacks.
Well, no, I mean, more so than setbacks, but from the concept of, with a ground-mounted unit, they're submitting structural drawings and details and things of that obviously come through our way, but we don't necessarily say one way or another if we, approve those particular details. But from the approach that we might have said something that might have
Yeah, I'll look.
had a building
Right.
code issue with the structure. That's all I'm saying.
I'll look it up because there was a decision written on it because he did come here, so, if there's any conditions or any other verbiage, it's usually in the condition that I wrote, so I'll look it up. Other than that, I don't have anything else on my agenda.
We're not doing Gill Farm?
Gill Farm still is incomplete.
Okay.
They were waiting, to have Copeland and Page approve the deed language, make sure it was all set. And Ed Gibson was handling that through Copeland and Page, so I'm still waiting on that. But again, too, I told them not to come back until everything was complete. Construction estimate, their bond, covenants, homeowners association, et cetera, so it's still incomplete.
Okay. We have no other business then, Mr. Chairman? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Cindy?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Before we adjourn, and that's next meeting.
We're meeting next Wednesday for a work session
That's what I
with
thought.
Larry again, because that'll be his last one before he
Right.
goes to Mexico.
Okay.
So the 11th, that's the 11th, right?
That would be the 11th.
So we'll be meeting upstairs, probably in the small meeting room, review bylaws again, pick up where we left off. Just for Paul's sake, we covered a little bit of ground, but the biggest thing that was being researched was, and Ryan Gielaher and Jerry Swanson were looking into it. They wanted to read, it was quite extensive about earth removal. That was a lot to digest, and Ryan wanted to read up on that, so we could have some, he mentioned some project in Westfield you might be familiar with.
Not one of mine.
Do you remember which one it was?
I don't.
We had issues.
I remember there was some discussion about low-impact development, too.
I remember where it was. It was up on Montgomery Road, and it was across from the
Oh.
high school, and
They built
I
a
called
residential
them, I said-
subdivision, and, yeah.
I graduated from the old high
That's
school,
right.
and then they said there's
Yeah.
water in there like forever, and,
Wasn't it an old gravel bank or something?
yeah, I think so, yeah.
And then, so they built on it and it got flooded?
It flooded like all the time, and I got the sense of, we didn't know, the shoulder
Sure.
shrug, that's,
Yeah.
I think that's what he was talking about, in
Yeah.
terms of gravel removal.
Meehan?
Okay. So it's next Wednesday, because it's not yet posted, it wasn't.
No, I'll post
Yeah,
it
okay.
tomorrow morning.
So I second Keith's motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Good night.